SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
Yeah, and the markets ain't happy today. A huge sell-off on the corner of Wall and Broad. The Dow down 644. And the NASDAQ also taking it on the chin, down some 300 points at this juncture in the session. 400 points now. Oh, gee, just crossed the 400 negative line. And Rhino, the funny money, whoo! It's getting hatcheted, shall we say. Crude oil down a couple of bucks today. Investors just queasy about everything. They're just like, they're worrying about lots of stuff. I think it's fair to say. And they're selling off. We've got Youssef Amrani today on the program at 11:05. He is the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United States of America in Mississippi because his country has executed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with Mississippi State University. And he's going to talk about that. He's also meeting with some of our state officials as well. And then at 12:05, it's Mississippi Speaker of the House, Jason White. That should be a good discussion. He'll talk about the committee deadline that passed earlier in the week. Of course, the Senate dispensing of HB 2 and sort of what the future roadmap is for education freedom in the state of Mississippi. So looking forward to those conversations. Got to pass this on as well because I just think it's good information to know about these big technology companies and their just massive revenue and earnings. Yesterday it was Alphabet. That's the parent company of what most people commonly refer to as Google. We're all familiar with that. They beat Wall Street's expectations for earnings and revenue. Of course, last week we reported that Apple blew it out. Microsoft blew it out. Wednesday, Microsoft. Thursday, Apple. Now we get Alphabet. And they killed it, as the saying goes, with revenue of $113 billion. But get this, Rhino, another just astonishing net income figure, $34.4 billion. So just doing the quick math here, we reported Microsoft last week. That blew me out of the water at 38. And the next day, Apple said, hold my beer. Here's $42 billion of net income. That's 82 right off the bat. So we're up to $116 billion of net income for these three companies in the quarter. The quarter. And while I know we're all mad about the cost of health insurance, because that's getting a lot of attention, it's outrageous. And I sat in yesterday, Rhino, on a Medicaid in the Senate side committee meeting. and just talking about some concerns and issues the various categories of hospitals are having with their disproportionate share payments. The provider taxes was also front and center. They're paying money in, not getting as much out. Provider taxes, by the way, hospitals pay those to the state government as a way to help fund and offset the state's expense of the Medicaid program. So I'll pay you a tax if you'll pay me money to take care of these people, to match with the federal component of Medicaid. But think about this. These three companies in a quarter make $116 billion. The entire health insurance industry last year, not defending them, again, just pointing out what to me is just a stunning, staggering net income contrast. The entire health insurance industry last year made about $40 billion. Mind-boggling. We got to do something, though, because people are complaining about the rise of premiums. They're getting their renewals, and lots of companies are seeing those as well. There's some discussion about here in the state of Mississippi with our state employees and their self-funded plan, how those premiums are rising, what we can do about that. I've seen some say we need more choice rather than just be limited to the very select few policies. Whew, man, a lot of stuff. But let's turn our attention to the many measures that are making their way down there through the state capitol. And there's a bunch of them, especially with the big committee deadline passing. Some of these I just can't figure out why they're not getting passed, such as, once again, legislation that would require schools, administrators, teachers to inform parents if their children's students indicate a desire to be identified with the gender that doesn't correspond with their biological birth gender. Why can't we pass that in this state, Rhino? Do you have any idea what the heck's going on there? What's the problem? Is that not something that we as conservative Republicans, and I'm saying that because Republicans control all the levers of government, what's the deal there? I mean, it's just one example of many bills that I've been taking a look at that I'm just a little surprised we couldn't get through. That one seems to me to be a no-brainer. Now, something that does look like might get through that I know would be of interest to our regular listener, Casey Waters, who's on the school board down there in Ocean Springs, something, we've talked about before that she shared with us to make us aware, and that's legislation that would essentially require the Department of Education to terminate its relationship with the crazy American school counselors group, school counselors. I believe I got that right. Senate Bill 2103. Casey, if you're listening, I know you track this as well. So basically, just reading the title, this would delete the provision that requires from the code professional school counselors to abide by the American School Counselors Association Code of Ethics. That's what I see, Rhino. That's Senator Angela Hill's bill, and I know I talked to her last year about it. It was after the fact, but it was because of a text we got. So I appreciate that, Casey. Remember, she sent us a text, said, you guys ought to look at this.
Yeah, it passed the Senate yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right, that's what I'm looking at as well. So because we've had trouble with that, but I did want to point that out as some good news, I think, just while we're talking about kind of the non-financial sort of cultural policy. I thought that was a good one. And then the birth certificate sex designated as sex at birth. Is this nuts that we have to pass legislation that Senator Fillinganes. No, it's Senator Hill's. Yeah, passed out of Senator Fillinganes' committee, Judd B. Senator Hill's measure. And so that has also passed. And we'll see what happens as it makes its way down to the House. But those are just a couple of interesting measures. The House yesterday, I sat in the gallery for about an hour and a half. Representative Trey Lamar, you know who he is. He heads the Ways and Means down there in the House, and he presented a number of measures. And then also the House, they passed some bills that would affect the public employees' retirement system. I think this would be good news for first responders. We'll talk about the details of that on the other side of the break. And then a teacher pay raise of $5,000. So that was a situation, Rhino. We got this volleying, is that a kind way to put it, between the House and the Senate, where the Senate passed a bill that would increase teacher pay raise $2,000, and the House said, hold my beer, here's $5,000, right? So we're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. The Public Employees Retirement System also addressed yesterday in this House Bill 1126 that did pass, that would, again, increase teacher pay by some $5,000. That's, of course, more than 2 times what the Senate's measure that already passed would do in terms of increasing teacher pay. It called for a $2,000 pay raise. So the House says, nope, we're going to 5. This tops the Senate bill. It also included provisions that relate to the public employees' retirement system. There's been, of course, a lot of backlash, shall we say, on that after Tier 5 passed last year, which would have converted the present system, which is a 100% defined benefit program, to a hybrid program. Also would change eligibility for retirement. That's where we heard the most complaint for full retirement at any age. Would increase the number of years of service from the present 30 to 35 for all newly hired participants in the program as of March 1st, a couple of weeks, 2026. So had to act on that sort of post-haste if they wanted to change it. And they did. Reduced it to 30. But more importantly, Rhino, as you know, where we heard the most complaint was from the law enforcement officers and first responders that would have had to work 35 years before they qualified at any age, and that was thought to be unreasonable because of the physical strain and the mental strain is too, honestly, for those particular positions. I tend to agree. And so the House saw fit to reduce the number of years required to retire at any age as a first responder, law enforcement officers, to 25 years. So from 35, which is what passed last year in Tier 5, to 25, and then also for all other employees, 35 to 30. So it would be interesting to see how that affects the fund, because the purpose of the Tier 5 was to improve the financial condition of the fund. This is likely to have a negative impact relative to Tier 5. It really puts it more in line with the old Tier 4. So I think would be accurate to say that the only change between the existing Tier 4 program, which was from 2011, there's some in the program that entered before 2011, of course, but Tier 4, the most current program, the one everybody would enroll in up to Tier 5 takes effect, I should say, March 1st of this year. The only other change is we do still have the hybrid model, meaning your contributions are some go to your defined benefit program. That simply means when you retire, you get those benefits for life. Some go to your defined contribution plan. That's more akin to a traditional private sector 401k plan. You put money in there, you direct the investment, and then you retire. Boom, that's how much money you got. If you spend it all before you die, you're out of money. In a defined benefit plan, it's there until you part the earth. So that was done yesterday as well. Interesting. And then the other one that we certainly talk about quite a bit on this program, and that's mobile sports betting. So that made its way through as well, the House yesterday. And we actually have a nice article on our website about that. J.T. Mitchell, our news director, authored that one, published it yesterday. Mobile sports betting bill passes Mississippi House, but faces uncertainty in the Senate. Well, that's kind of a nice way to put it there, as you would expect. Appreciate JT for his insightful analysis here of that bill. Now, the interesting thing about this legislation, and we'll talk to the Speaker about it, is that the proceeds would be directed to the Public Employees Retirement System. That is the way it was designed. All the revenue, and it would be the tax revenue from the mobile sports betting platforms. Now, the House is proposing we're going to send $600 million to PERS in a big lump sum from the same capital expense fund that the Senate proposed to transfer $500 million. So the Senate's playing $500 million, and then we're just going to give it a check of $50 million a year for 10 years for a total $1 billion. The House says, well, we're going to send $600 million as a lump sum, but then we're going to send all the proceeds from this mobile sports betting program to the Public Employees Retirement System, and we'll see where it goes from there, right? So check me out on this. Did a little research on how much money that might be. Casey Uri, the author of this bill, believe he estimated $40 million a year could be generated. That's a twice what he estimated a couple of years ago when he authored that bill, but it could be. It's gaining in popularity. There's no doubt about that. So our news director, J.T. Mitchell, in his research said that Louisiana generated about $90 million, Tennessee $117 million. I looked at Arkansas. I believe it was about 40-something million. Rhino, are you seeing that? Is what the data I got. So, and I came up with slightly different numbers than JT found here, but it's not surprising. There's lots of information floating around out there. But this certainly would help the PERS program, all the money that would be generated from the mobile sports betting platform, the tax money, just like as is the case with the lottery, the first $80 million go to roads and bridges and the excess to the Education Enhancement Fund. In this particular legislation, all proceeds generated, talking about the tax proceeds from the mobile sports betting platform, would be transferred to the public employees retirement system.
How much did you say Arkansas made?
I thought it was like 47, 50 million, something in that neighborhood.
In revenue?
No, and the tax money that was transferred from the program to the state's take-home benefit, if you will.
Maybe over the life of the entirety of the program.
I thought it was for last year.
I'm only seeing $7 million in tax revenue for 2025.
Hold on a second. I think you're right about that because I was having a conversation at the Capitol about that yesterday. Let me see what I saw the same thing. I thought that was awfully low. Now, you're right about that. I think I'm referring to it was my numbers that I got for Tennessee and Louisiana that differed from the ones JT got. So not trying to dispute JT's numbers here. That's what you're right. That's how I got that because you're exactly right. I was talking to Representatives Jansen Owen and also Dan Eubanks and Steve Lott after the session yesterday. Just caught them in the hall, and we were talking about that bill. And I got curious about that because I thought Arkansas would be probably the closest to Mississippi. In fact, that is the state we analyze with respect to projecting Mississippi's lottery revenue because they're sort of close in population and demographics and income levels. Yeah, I saw $700,000 a month, roughly. You said $7 million, but what I looked at was like the last quarter, I think, when I dug into it. So we're close, $7-8 million. But that's a far cry from the 40, right, that Representative Uri is representing. That's the main point. It's Louisiana, I think, was in the 40-something million range, and JT got 70. And then Tennessee, I found 90. He said 117. Of course, those are bigger states, more populous states. So take a look at that when you can. But the bottom line is all this money goes to PERS. Question is how much, and it's totally speculative. We could look at Arkansas as a bit of a guide. It's speculative. And then, of course, you won't know until you put the thing up. Same with the lottery. It shocked us. Maybe this will shock us in a positive way as well. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From this, Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. So the other one I didn't take a look at before we came on the air, Rhino, is authored by Senator Angela Hill. This is one that I've talked about quite a bit, and that would prohibit the preferential treatment in contracting based on race, ethnicity, gender, etc. I'm looking down her list right now. I don't see it. So I may be missing something and not being able to find it. And maybe it was discussed and didn't get ultimately filed. I don't see anything along those lines. And that's disappointing because I still believe that's a major problem in our state. Reed on his mobile says, by the results of the Senate killing HB 2, I think you can stop saying conservative Republicans and just refer to them as simple Republicans, or my favorite term, Republicrats. They are all, as a group, disappointing. Let's see, Gerard, in the same way that I can't understand how lobbying our legislators is legal, I also find it surreal that our school superintendents can receive incentives from vendors wanting their school district to use their services, products. Am I alone in feeling this way? I'm not familiar with that, honestly. That sounds like a huge conflict of interest. I certainly wouldn't support such a practice where vendors, that's a bribe, essentially. Is what that is. If they're involved in the procurement process, it really wouldn't matter. I can tell you as a vendor to the state, you couldn't even take them to lunch. I mean, and it should be that way. I'm not complaining about that. So you kind of got me. Now, something else I forgot to talk about, Rhino, is the teacher pay raise bill. That would be HB 1126 that did pass the House.
The preferential treatment bill died in committee.
What's the bill number? I missed
Senate
it.
Bill 2250.
Okay, thank you for finding that. Because I'm looking at our tool, and okay, I just found it. You're right. I apologize. I missed it. So how many dang times have I sat in this chair and announced that this common sense legislation died in committee? Every year I've been doing
common
this?
Sense is not so common for certain committee leadership.
So is this bad policy? Let me read it to the folks here, just so you'll understand. This is just a title, and you tell me your reaction. Is this good or bad policy? Here it goes. To prohibit state, county, and municipal agencies, departments, institutions, or offices, or their political subdivisions. That's the long legal way of saying government. From entering into minority set-aside contracts or from providing minority businesses with preferential treatment in contracting. So, didn't we complain to holy hell about that under the Biden administration? Where day one he comes in and signs a slew of executive orders essentially granting all sorts of deference and preferential treatment based on your sexual orientation and your race and your gender. I mean, it just invaded every corner of the federal government. Did not President Trump come in and reverse like virtually every bit of that within about 24 hours? Why can't we do that in Mississippi? I'm passionate about this because I've experienced it as a vendor. And I don't want to give the impression it's widespread. It's not. But you know where it is? Common practice is the city of Jackson, where we're sitting. And guess which city is in the worst shape of all the cities, arguably, in the state? The city of Jackson. And as long as we have this license to engage in cronyism in procurement, we'll never fix city of Jackson's problems. I just don't know why we can't get this through. I'm just blown away. And, of course, we don't know how they voted because it's a committee. Just like yesterday we shared the silence, the deafening silence on the committee vote in Senator Dennis DeBar's Education Committee on the Speaker's priority legislation, HB 2, the Sweeping Education Reform and Education Freedom Bill. You played it for us. And when there was a call for a vote by the chairman, all the nays, all the yeas, it was silence. What the heck? And what did then the chairman say? The nays have it, right? Why don't you just say, I have it, it's going down? Wouldn't that be a more accurate description of it? It wasn't the committee. They didn't say a dang word. Can I just be honest here? Cowards.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
Just tell us where you stand.
And malicious compliance with one of the arguments against DeBar and his shoddy leadership of his committee was that he was never even willing to bring it up for a vote. So now that he brought it up for a vote and nobody voted and he got to kill it anyways, he can say he brought it up for a vote.
That's exactly right.
So yes, you're right.
And you know
Chicken.
What? Maybe somebody told him, hey, Gerard and Rhino out there calling you out for pocket vetoing this legislation in the past. And maybe this time he says, okay, I'll show them I won't pocket veto it. You put it up for a vote, and it was crickets. Correct me if I'm
Welcome
wrong.
to political theater, where you hold an entire committee meeting just to stroke your own ego, and the committee meeting lasts less than 2 minutes.
Is voting on legislation like a fundamental responsibility of the people we elect and send to represent us? What am I missing here?
Understanding and voting, yes. That's presumed to be what you send them there to do.
Jeez, man.
But instead, you get obstinate ignorance and a whole bunch of ego stroking and a whole bunch of, I'll use one of Jordan Peterson's newly coined phrases, narcissistic compassion, and you wind up with nothing actually getting done.
And that's what it feels like.
Because a little bit of work, not even hard work, just work that they were elected to do might get in the way of a dinner party.
And I appreciate your analysis. I'm going to try to not think quite that badly about it. But come on, man, just vote. Just tell us where you stand. Now, we heard Senator Boyd, who sits on that committee, say yesterday that when she was on with Richard, that school choice legislation is not conservative. And then somebody on our text line said that Senator Hill, who would be considered one of the more conservative, right-leaning members of the Senate.
You got to twist yourself into knots to call this not conservative.
Exactly. Totally. 100%.
You're basically saying, yes, please, daddy government, govern me more. Govern me harder.
It just blows me away. So, on the C Spire text line with respect to mobile sports betting, so we are selling our souls to the devil for the almighty dollar, gambling and alcohol. How about the cost of families and medical costs associated with the two? So to your point, Rhino, is it the government's responsibility to pass laws that keep you from being stupid? Because you know what? If you're not taking care of your families and you're hurting your body because you're putting stuff in it, you're being stupid. It's just simple as that. It is not government's responsibility to stand in the gap between you and stupid. Here's the thing. Don't be stupid.
You can't make it illegal to be dumb, or way too many of the population to be sitting behind bars.
Now, I get it. There's a fine line between reasonable protections of our safety and our welfare and well-being and freedom. So I guess I would say to this person this same response I've made numerous times about the lottery. Yeah, if folks aren't spending their money on that, I promise they're going to spend it on something else that, too, they probably shouldn't be spending it on. They're just irresponsible. Now, I'm not saying that that's being irresponsible. It is when you're not taking care of your affairs or you're harming your body by ingesting substances such as alcohol. So should we just ban alcohol? Is it not possible to consume alcohol without harming your body? I think so. Many would argue it's possible to consume drugs as well without harming your body. Maybe helping. That's why we have a medical cannabis program, for example. But no, I'm not for government saying, we gotta protect you, because you know what happens every time government says they're going to protect you? They hurt you. And in this case, I believe they impose and infringe on your freedoms. This is a no-brainer to me. We're not going to stop mobile sports betting because we don't have a law to authorize it. Coming right back in the Element Wealth Studio.
Now we interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Once again, Youssef Amrani, ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco, in the Element Wealth Studio after the break at the top of the hour, and then Speaker of the House, Jason White, in the studio at 12:05. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees as we watch all the indexes in negative territory sliding today. We got negative jobs reports yesterday, and then even more information on the jobs fronts today that is less than rosy, shall we say. Layoffs have spiked to the worst since 2009. A lot of discussion about, hey, is this the result of AI? Are we experiencing the beginning of an AI-driven job apocalypse? Hard to tell. I don't really think so. But 108,000 layoffs for the month. That's up 118% from January a year ago. Alan in the Delta says he's up on the addicts and the alcoholics. You're right, Alan, and I apologize for that. But there's a distinction, I think, Rhino, between those who truly do have a problem with addiction and I think those who just make bad choices. And I'm directing my angst at the latter, those who make bad choices. That has nothing to do with being an addict in many cases. The big point is I don't want government interfering with those choices. I think mobile sports betting, it's happening right now, and we ain't getting a dime for it. That's the problem, and that's the issue. I think this is a novel way, in my view, to raise money for the public employees' retirement system.
And it's completely voluntary.
Totally voluntary. It's not a tax. 100%.
It's a voluntary way for the state to raise revenue.
Which
in a perfect world would mean they could cut some spending, but we all know that's not going to happen.
Exactly. James from Petal says, you could make the bill more conservative, talking about HB2, the school choice bill out of the House.
Key being more conservative. It's already conservative. It could be made more conservative. So to call it not conservative is just asinine. I'm just going to call it like I see it. If you're a staunch Republican and you say it's not conservative, you're talking out of your rear.
Not only that, you're in direct contradiction with the party's platform. And who is the de facto leader of the party? That's the President of the United States. Isn't that how it works? Isn't that the top party figure? Of course. So you're in direct conflict with that, and every conservative think tank, advocacy group, philosopher in the country that helps form and formulate conservative policy and ideas. So James from Petal says, you can make the bill more conservative. Smaller government would be not taxing as much instead of vouchers for public to private transfers. We control the money instead of the government giving it back to us. So a couple of things there, James, I hear you, is that we already do that. That's the discussion I had yesterday, Rhino, about, hey, we budget at the state level, at the district level, relying on the fact that 50,000 students in this state are going to go to a school other than the public school to which they are assigned. That literally keeps our taxes down. That choice keeps our taxes down. The problem, James, to your point there is that you're talking about a lot of people that don't pay any taxes. They pay sales taxes, right? So the only way that we could address it is if they were exempt from sales taxes. You would have enough money, theoretically. But when it's a public-to-public school transfer, that's a wash. This would only apply if you were seeking to enroll in a private school, currently enrolled in a public school, in which case, yeah, that money would come out of the public school, and it would be diverted to and direct it to the private school. So it's a little impractical, but I certainly do appreciate your point and get it there. Yeah, it's complicated. Also, Rhino, there was a bill that was passed yesterday in the House that I caught HB 1523. This would be grants to farmers. This is kind of the House's way of addressing the plight of our farmers. You know, the Senate earlier, the Lieutenant Governor advocated for eliminating the 1.5% sales tax. Remember that? And so what the House is saying is, Representative Lamar there at the well said, hey, I've talked to lots of farmers. They said that's really not going to help us a lot. I actually do believe that. And so they've come up with this grant program to help farmers buy equipment and so forth in the state. So it's tough to get on board with that as a conservative as well, but I get it. We're coming right back after the news with the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco. Stay with us. Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday Eve.
We are honored to welcome now Mr. Youssef Amrani, the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United States of America. Mr. Ambassador, thanks so much for coming in today, sir.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy and excited to be here in Mississippi.
Well, we are celebrating, as you know, our 250th year as a nation is the United States, but apparently we have a connection there, and that we're also celebrating 250 years of our relationship with the nation of Morocco.
Yes, exactly. You know, Morocco was the first country to recognize the independence of the United States of America in 1777. And today we are celebrating 250 years of friendship. Morocco is a loyal friend to the U.S., not only your oldest ally in the region, but a country that is committed and is working with you. And this 250 years confirms this commitment and these relations, which tackles political dialogue, economic cooperation, and cooperation also in the military, security, and others. And we are two countries that are active and are in the international scene.
Yeah, that's something that, of course, our president has been hyper-focused on, is just trying to bring stability to the world overall.
Yes, President Trump is bringing stability. And again, we were the first countries to join the peace, the Board of Peace, and we have signed in Davos, our foreign minister signed in Davos the agreement to join the peace board.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. That occurred.
10 days ago, I think, in Davos.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So what brings you to Mississippi? We understand that you guys are cooking up a relationship with Mississippi State University.
Yes, the relation exists since a long time ago. Now we are reinforcing this relation to integrate new dimension, because we believe that universities play a very important role in building bridges between countries, between people, and education is a priority in our government. And the experience of Mississippi University is very important for us. And we have more than 300 Moroccans who are integrated, who studied here, and they have access to job. And this, by itself, it's a major breakthrough.
Apparently, it's our understanding that a memorandum of understanding has been executed.
Yeah, exactly. The president of the Rabat International University is here, Mr. Nordin Muad'Dib. He's here. He's going to sign this memo, and we're going to integrate now some new dimensions in our cooperation, and maybe to include new elements like the issue of critical minerals that yesterday the Vice President G.D. Vance presided over a meeting I came from there in Washington with the presence of more than 50 foreign ministers to tackle this very important issue.
A critical one, because we appear to be way too reliant on China. And China, in many ways, of course, is a key adversary, not just to the United States, but to the world overall.
Exactly. And that's why these initiatives, will help us to build up transparent frameworks where partnerships replace dependence, where we can add new value change that helps prosperity and job creation. And because all of us are today trying to see how we can realize growth through job creation. And I think that for Africa, if you allow me 2 minutes to say that, for us it's important, this issue of critical minerals, in 3 concrete priorities. One is we need to build up transparent frameworks where, as I say, a partnership is key. Add value chains that distribute prosperity rather than concentrate risk. And you were talking about China before. And for these reasons, we need to work on trust corridors, sovereign and legally anchored instrument in order to secure. And this was exactly the message that was delivered yesterday by Vice President G.D. Vance in Washington, D.C.
The president and the vice president really have called attention to this risk in a way that we really never heard before. And I think people in this country and across the globe are realizing that many of these critical minerals are totally controlled by China, who really can't be trusted.
Exactly. So what we need, and what Morocco has expressed yesterday, we need a loyalty pact between producers, processors, and users. And I'm not going to quote your words, but a pact grounded not in ideology, but in strategic respect and a sovereignty balance.
Mr. Ambassador, tell us about the Royal Atlantic Initiative. What's going on there?
Exactly. Well, Morocco, His Majesty King Mohammed VI has launched an initiative that links Africa with North Africa and also with Europe. To be able to face the different challenges in the region, especially security, and the Sahel. This initiative is built on building corridors and building networks of energy, network of transport, and also to help some countries like the landlocked countries in the Sahel, where there is a lot of instability, to link them to the sea. So to trade, to prosperity.
Sure.
And that's why we have now strategic projects in the region, like the Dakhla port, the very important port that will allow these Sahelian countries to make business, to link to the world. The very important gas pipeline between Nigeria and Morocco which will be crossing 13 African countries. This is something also is important. It's a strategic. And Morocco is working in this sense because we believe that we need some commitment. We need some vision. The vision is to create a free trade area, within the African Union and beyond, and also to connect, as I said earlier, the networks, because it's important to connect people and also to connect networks. This is the way how we could achieve stability, because what matters the most is how much job do you create and how much growth you obtain. And only you can realize this only through ambitious programs and corridors.
Yeah. Does this, Mr. Ambassador, would this reduce the reliance on Russia for gas, for example, especially in the EU and the African continent, which Russia's not too friendly to a lot of the world?
Thank you for asking this question. I will maybe respond to you differently.
Okay.
First, we, countries of the South, we need to do our own homework internally. to build democratic countries, to build transparent schemes, to have the financing institution in order to move forward. And then we need to work with our partners. And our partners that we can try, that we can rely on, like the U.S. We, like Morocco and the U.S., for example, are just two examples. We have been working for years together. We have celebrated this year 20 years of a free trade agreement. We're the only African country who has a free trade agreement with the U.S. We have no complex. Every year we have a very important military cooperation through maneuvers called the African Line. So we need to rely with countries that share the same values, because at the end of the day, what matters is which kind of values you share: prosperity, respect of human rights, and so on and so on.
Yes.
And free trade. You cannot implement these tools with these others because they don't believe in free trade. And this is the vision that is being promoted by Morocco.
And to your point, sir, the values that are held by Americans are very similar to those in Morocco. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, this is why, because we share the same values, that's why our relations is strong. We can have some issues, but we can talk to them, negotiate, like we can have issues about tariffs, for example. It's important for us. We can talk about it and try to find the solution for these issues.
Yeah. Been fascinating. Thank you so much for coming on, and welcome to the great state of Mississippi. And thank you for believing in Mississippi, and in particular with your orchestration and agreements with Mississippi State University. Thank you, sir.
And we share many things between Morocco and Mississippi. We are agricultural countries, and we are also embarked in ambitious modernization and industry. And I see some music coming from my region. I can hear it.
Youssef Amrani, the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United States of America, has been our guest. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back, folks. Stay with us.
Hello. Hey, is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Tell me, do you think it'd be alright if I could just crash here tonight? You can see I'm no sheep for driving. Anyway, I've got no.
Welcome back, everyone. It's MidDays from the Element Wealth Studio. Wow, that was pretty cool. Really enjoyed visiting with Mr. Youssef Amrani, the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco, forging even further into their relationship with Mississippi State University. A new MOU signed to that effect, expanding that relationship, and then also going to be meeting with some state leaders. But it's also a beautiful country as well, right? Rhino, incredible landscape, and as I recall, that was kind of a favorite vacation spot for the rich and famous back in the 50s and 60s. Those that could afford to go somewhere other than the Catskills, right? Thinking about Dirty Dancing when that was the big vacation treat. Pretty cool. But appreciate him coming in. That was awesome. So something else that's out there from back to Mississippi here concerning legislation, of course, is Senator Jeremy England's bill. Our friend Ben from Madison wrote us about this yesterday. This would, of course, reestablish a ballot initiative in the state of Mississippi. And it looks like it may be going forward. Not sure what may happen to it at the end of the day, but the measure itself would pretty much allow citizens to collect signatures and get something on the ballot there to vote on would require a simple majority to pass, only could affect statute, couldn't deal with the public employees retirement system or the issue of abortion. But it would be a resolution, of course, to, first of all, amend the Constitution, and then get the legislation passed to essentially reinstate our ballot initiative process, which we have not had since 2021. Hard to believe. 5 years now since that was nullified by the Supreme Court because of a drafting anomaly in the Constitution. Interesting. We'll see where that goes. I know that's something that a lot of people do care about. And you wonder, Rhino, if something like this happened, if we got this thing back out there, if we would get a measure initiated by the public regarding school choice. It's an idea, right? And there may be some other restrictions as well on the, as I recall, the funding and the signature gathering, but in general, and it would require 10% of the registered voters, right? So that's 150,000 or so, generally speaking, is the number that I saw. So that's more than the present 12% of those who voted in the last election is what's on the books right now. So that is something that looks like it's got a little bit of legs, and we'll see if it makes it on out of the Senate and then gets over to the House. I can't find anything out of the House. Did I ask you about that yesterday? I don't know if you were able to find anything as well that came out of the House that would reestablish the ballot initiative process. Did you see anything on that? I didn't find anything.
I thought I did. I just got to find it in my
well, maybe
list
you're right.
here. 400 or something.
I know that's the problem. So many of them, they do get sort of difficult to keep up with, to track. But that is certainly one that we are keeping an eye on because it's something we lost 5 years ago, and it's.
Yeah, the only one still alive is Senate Bill 2919 from Jeremy England that I've found so far.
So it is a bill, and am I not right in my assessment that we still would have to modify he brought the code sections forward.
Yeah, it's basically just a placeholder. They would have to substitute either in, I guess at this point it would be in conference. I guess it could be substituted in the next committee.
Yeah, well, I maybe I made a mistake. I thought there was a measure that was not just bringing the code section forward, but there was a measure itself that.
There was a resolution. And
that's
a couple
what it
resolutions in the House.
Okay.
But they all died in committee.
In the House, and they died in committee. So do you wonder if that's because the feeling is in the House that we've heard that before, that, well, why we want to pass this thing because it's going to go down to the Senate and it's not going anywhere. So I kind of wonder if that's the rationale behind that. Sort of amazing to me that can't seem to get anything going there. But right, that would require a resolution. First thing we got to do is change the Constitution, and then behind that, the actual bill itself, a measure that would create the program itself. So let's see what we got here on the C Spire text line. Ben says, any measure that costs the state any money would require 60% of the entire electorate. Okay, not on the question therein, so I have major problems with that. Even if it's a revenue positive, it would still require, 60% of the entire electorate. Okay, I didn't get that far into the bill. Appreciate you clarifying that for us. Ben. Yeah, I mean, I get it. They're trying to keep us from going to the polls to I guess vote for something that could mess up the budget. That's probably a simple way of describing it. That's what we're dealing with there. Yeah, he said that I don't understand why it was a 50% plus one for a constitutional amendment, but now it seems they are determined to make it 60% or 66% for statute. Huh. So that's not what I found, but I may be looking at the wrong measure, but appreciate that, Ben. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. I'm just not sure that either of these have a whole lot of chance of making their way through both houses and to the governor's desk. There just doesn't seem overall to be an inclination to reinstate the ballot initiative process. I think if there were, it would have already happened. I'm not sure there's Ryan, I don't know that there's a whole lot of, well, what if we change it to this and that and this and that? I don't know that there's enough modifying you could do and tinkering with the language you could do in the provisions to garner the necessary support. And again, we got to amend the Constitution first to fix the problem in the Constitution before we can do anything. Paula Meridian says, seems like every other year I hear about teacher pay raise. They make about double what we pay cops, but I never hear anybody on here griping about raising the pay for our law enforcement. Well, we had Commissioner Tyndall on the other day, and he made a pretty salient point, I would say, Rhino. I hear you, Paul. I agree. It doesn't get quite the same level of attention. I'm agreeing with you. But the commissioner's aware, and he talked about the compensation salaries for our state troopers. Entry-level pay all the way up to more seasoned troopers. And I want to say he contrasted that to a City of Cleveland police officer. Remember that, Rhino? And he said, a City of Cleveland police officer seems like it's like double what entry-level pay for a state trooper would be. So he's aware. He's pushing. I would say he talks about that whenever he comes on, and he's pushing the legislature on that as well. Here's the dilemma that we have. You got a bunch of people out there that naturally say, hey, we need to cut spending. We hear that every day. But we also have, and appreciate Paul pointing that out, we have people that say, we need to pay our law enforcement officers more. Then you've got a whole bunch of people that say we need to pay our teachers more. So it's hard to cut spending when you're doing that. That's not really an opinion one way or another on should we increase pay. It's just pointing out the reality is it's really hard to cut when such a big chunk of your budget increases, such as teacher pay. That's certainly a lot more than law enforcement pay would be, but just for argument's sake, I'm just making that point. And then we've got, our Department of Corrections, super low salaries there, and desperately need more personnel in our Department of Corrections. And the Department of Corrections has got some other difficult situations in its facilities, for example. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
From this
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. Got my mind set on you. But it's gonna take money. A whole lot of spending money. It's gonna take plenty of money to do it right, child. It's gonna take time.
Yeah, Mose points out, I just looked at it as well, Mose. It's 170,000 signatures, 10% of the registered voters, right? So that's a significant increase from the 12% of the total number who voted in the last gubernatorial election, which comes in around the 110,000 mark. So it's significantly higher signature hurdle. But and Rhino and I are looking at this, and Ben, I know you study this as well. But
yeah, I'm fairly certain that section of the bill we were looking at, which to fill in the listeners because they weren't listening during the they weren't listening to us during the break. You were confused about whether or not the legislature would have to approve the ballot initiative. That's not the case.
Okay.
The legislature, from what I'm reading, would reserve the right to amend
it,
any ballot initiative. But after that point, if they do amend an initiative, the amended version and the original initiative are both submitted to the electors.
Okay.
So they would put the original and then the amended version on the ballot, and the voters would get to decide between the original or the amended version.
Right. And that's consistent with what we've had, is it not? I thought that was fairly similar to what we've had.
The legislature usually doesn't amend the ballot initiative. They propose an alternative to the ballot initiative.
Okay. Yeah. And that you're right. And both would appear. Isn't that
Correct.
what we had?
That's what we had.
And is that not what we had with the medical marijuana, or am I confused about that?
You had the ballot initiative that would put it in the Constitution.
Yep.
And you had the alternative that was put forth by the legislature.
And voters could select from either, right, in that section of their ballot. So I guess what I was reading here in that section, though, it for some reason made me feel that it would require approval by the legislature. It says an initiative may be adopted or adopted as amended by a majority vote of each house of the legislature. If it's adopted or adopted as amended, or if no action is taken within 4 months of the date that the initiative was filed with the legislature, the Secretary of State shall place the initiative as adopted or adopted as amended, as the case may be, on the ballot.
It's the next section, Section 11, that clarifies if the legislature amends an initiative, the amended version and the original initiative shall be submitted to the electors.
But what if they don't? Is it necessary for them to adopt, approve, vote on the unamended version that was submitted by the people who initiated this ballot? That was my question. It looks to me like when I read it that no matter what, the legislature's got to check it, say yes, that it doesn't just flow directly from the Secretary of State to the ballot.
I think a more charitable reading would be unless the ballot initiative is formatted in the way bills and laws are supposed to be formatted, the legislature might have to amend it to fit the format.
Okay. All right. But what if they just didn't like it? That's my point. They said, okay, sorry.
Then they could amend it to be basically null and void, and that would be on the ballot against the original.
Okay. But my concern was that they could just kibosh the whole deal and say, sorry, we don't like what you're initiating here, and we're going to essentially veto it, and it's not going to the ballot. That was my concern. I might have to check in with Senator England and get clarification on that.
If you go down to Section 13, if an initiative proposed to the legislature has been rejected by the legislature and an alternative is passed by the legislature in lieu thereof, the ballot titles of both such measures shall be so printed on the official ballot so the voter can express separately two preferences.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that the legislature can't block an initiative from appearing on the ballot. That's what I'm trying to make sure of. I get that if they amend it, if they amend it, you get both, the original and the amended. What I'm trying to find out and understand is, can they just say, we don't like your deal altogether. We're not going to propose an alternative, an amended version. We're just not going to let it go to the ballot. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But as you can see, this is one of those bills that's got lots of underlines. So that's why it's a little difficult to track. Underlining just mean that you're inserting or you're changing, amending existing language. And that's what this thing does.
I think Section 14 kind of back end answers your question, because initiative measures approved by the people shall not require the signature of the governor to become law and shall not be subject to the veto power of the governor.
Okay. Well, that would be the governor, but that still
If
doesn't.
they're not giving the governor veto power, then I don't think they would give the legislature veto power.
Possibly. I don't know. And the reason I say that is because this did make it out of committee, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that they said, okay, as long as we can kill it, we're okay there, Senator England. That's where I'm going. And again, I'm going to check in with Senator England and make sure that, because it is confusing. You pointed out some things. I feel like I'm still not where I feel like, they don't have any purview over this. It still looks to me like Secretary of State's got to send it over to the legislature. If they didn't have any control and power over that, it seemed to me like it would go from the Secretary of State straight to the ballot. Provided the Secretary of State has reviewed it and approved it and said, yep, it meets all the guidelines and all the rules and all the formatting requirements and so forth that you rightfully pointed out. Because they could, in fact, draft something that, hey, that doesn't really match the way we do our statutes. It makes total sense there. But the Secretary of State should have the means to determine that. That's what they do. They record all that stuff. So, interesting, though, for sure. Mo says, I suggested 60% of two-thirds of the people's votes to pass. If we are going to override the legislature, I think it would be more than a simple majority. Well, it could be a situation where it's a kind of a trade-off, Mose, that, hey, as long as the legislature has to approve this thing before it goes to the ballot, if it gets simple majority at the ballot, we're okay with it. That may be the rationale for that. And again, I'm totally speculating here. This is an interesting one for sure. Ben said it's just a procedural section prescribing how a measure gets to the ballot, as I understand it. And you could be right, Ben. We'll find out. DJ in Summit says, this is a stupid idea. Every legitimate speeding ticket issued by a highway patrolman, give them a monetary bonus. That would give them a raise and slow down these crazy drivers. Probably not legal also. Yeah, I don't think I'd be for that. And financial inducement to go out there and write tickets. Actually, Rhino, I'm not so sure that back in the old justices of the peace, is this way they got paid in the old days, right? Remember that?
I don't remember it, but I've learned about it. Yes.
Well, I only know because I got one in Duck Hill going to Ole Miss, and I had to call that's when the deadgum speed limit was 55, by the way. And I had to call the JP in Duck Hill. I'll never forget it. And I was, my dad had kind of coached me, not that I think he needed to in this case, but he wanted to make sure. And I had hat in hand, gee, I'm so sorry, and I won't do that again. And didn't try to make excuses. And he kind of said, well, it sounds like your foot got a little heavy there, son. Yes, sir, you can say that. And you know what he said? Well, just send me $35. I swear. That's how it went. And you literally sent it to his house. $35. I'm not kidding about that. Oh, my gosh. Oh, that was crazy, those times. So don't have that anymore, thankfully. What else we got here? Oh, this is from Joey the Trucker. America's back. That looks like a big old Christmas tree, as I recall them being described as, an oil well, right? Some drilling going on there? That was pretty tall. Like. Yeah, that's probably about, 40, 50 feet? That's a pretty big one. That would indicate it's going kind of deep.
Maybe bigger than that.
Yeah. Interesting.
If that little box on the side is a storage container, that's a big old tall.
Yeah, that's a big one. So let's see what else we got. Also, we actually from the school choice news area, we actually, as I said, made our way into the kind of the national spotlight with the Unleash Prosperity newsletter that came out today from Stephen Moore. And when he said that we kind of had a whiff on the school choice stuff, he would be right. I think that's a nice way of putting it, as a whiff. And he sort of called out Mississippi for failing to get this done. Again, as you pointed out, Rhino, this is considered conservative legislation. How could giving people more power than government and power over their government to a great extent and more control of the way government spends its money.
That's the problem I have with people that have gotten bent out of shape about being associated with, like, the ACLU and liberal Democrats. Well, you're both making the same arguments. It's not like you're differentiating yourself with different arguments. You're making the same exact arguments.
Which is why you're getting that comparison. Speaker of the House did that. Coming right back.
Up of Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
BJ Thomas, we are back with you in the Element Wealth studio today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar. You'll hear an interview with Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and two-time national champion Gino Torretta. You can listen to In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar today at 1 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I just sent a question to Senator England. Rhino, hopefully he can clear that up for us on the ballot initiative. Oh, he says, Joey the trucker said, Gerard, it's a triple in Lowndes County, right at the edge. It's a triple right at the edge of Monroe County. Okay. That's a big old well. Looks like it's going up. Appreciate you sending that to us, Joey. That's awesome. Good deal there.
And a typical triple drilling rig is between 130 to 150 feet.
Okay.
So it is a big old boy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. So going after that oil or gas. Cool deal. Love it. So just some other stuff that's going on down there at the legislature, and we got, of course, the Speaker of the House coming in that will enlighten us. He's coming in the next segment. But they were pretty busy yesterday, for sure. And then you expect that after the committee deadline passes, then the bills proceed to the floor in their respective chambers in which they originated. And then through the old Rhino procession, they get transmitted down the hall. And that's kind of where we are right now. So we got some adjustments to the public employees retirement system, some sort of amendments to the Tier 5 that passed last year, and we've got a teacher pay raise. We got a mobile sports betting bill. Those are the big ones. And then, of course, the biggest, certainly from the House perspective, HB 2 that would have implemented a school choice program in the state of Mississippi. And by the way, Rhino, anytime this gets brought up, friends have told me when they bring this up to senators, you know what they say? Oh, we already have school choice. You know that's what they say. And so I had to explain. And then the other thing they're doing is boasting about the one that passed the Senate, has been sent down to the House, that we discussed yesterday. I won't go through that again, but a watered-down open enrollment bill is what it is. Very restrictive, limited open enrollment bill. And then when I explain that to people who say, well, my senator said they passed one. And I explain, well, here's what they passed. And you know what they all say? Well, that's nothing. Right. We agree. They need to tell you that this is just kind of scratching the surface here. There's another bill related to information technology out of the Senate that would establish a chief information officer appointed by the governor. And that it'd serve at the pleasure of the governor as well. So, and this is really to call more focus to protecting the state's cyber assets and really ensuring we have a robust cybersecurity strategy. So I haven't talked to Senator Delano. I believe it's his bill, Rhino, about this. I would just make a suggestion here, and I don't know what kind of conversations he's had with Information Technology Services. We had Dr. Craig Ogeron last week. He presently, of course, is the executive director of ITS, also serves as the state CIO. But when I read kind of the responsibilities here and the focus here, Rhino, this is more appropriate for a chief information security officer, for a CISO, as opposed to a CIO. And I'm wondering if maybe this particular role, which I'm fine with, in being an advisor to the governor, to the chief executive, ought to be, since it's more focused on security and cybersecurity, really that should be a CISO as opposed to the CIO. So, because the CIO would have to be more involved with the kinds of tasks and activities and issues that Dr. Ogeron is at ITS. Just a thought. Hadn't really dug into that too deep beyond that. But it's certainly just a thought. We also defined AI. That was from the AI task force that I happen to serve on. And it's very fundamental. Let's establish what it is before we do anything else. Let's at least agree on what it is. And so we adopted the federal government's definition of it, which is fine. So we got that going on as well. And then there was also a bill, and you may want to check me out on this, the Glacier Act from Senator McClendon in DeSoto County, that looks like it failed. And that would have provided some funding to local law enforcement for immigration enforcement. Check me out on that. Called the Glacier Act. I don't remember what all that stands for. Is that right? I think I got that right. Yeah. I'm not sure why. And you can't look at committee votes because they don't record them. So we don't know. Coming right back after Fox News Super Talk News, it's Speaker of the House Jason White.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
It's our great pleasure to welcome now Speaker of the House of Representatives of the great state of Mississippi, Mr. Speaker Jason White. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Speaker.
Good to be with you, Gerard.
You guys had, as is always the case, kind of an active day yesterday after committee deadlines, to be totally expected. And your members, I was up in the gallery. You saw me up there and enjoyed some of the banter back and forth. Some of it I was up there rolling my eyes, quite honestly, sir.
I saw you. That's when I urged you not to just jump over the rail and end it all.
There was a couple of times I was about to come out of my suit sitting out there. But that's fine. That's the way the sausage is made, and we get through it. We plow through it. But so let's talk first about some good stuff that came about yesterday. That of course advanced out of committee, got to your floor, was voted on. I don't know that I've seen so many unanimous votes in a session.
There were lots of unanimous votes yesterday. Now most of that, when you see those unanimous votes, they're usually something that I tell people this all the time. We can't agree on some things, but it usually is not something that the average taxpayer or Mississippian is going to sit up and take notice and think. Yeah. It's not real meaningful in their everyday life, so to speak.
But it's necessary.
But it's necessary. So we get there, and that's part of our job. And, and my members do it well and are able to put philosophical differences aside on other issues and deal with the people's business, if you will. So that's part of it. And I thought it was good and civil debate, yesterday. We'll see what that leads to.
Okay. Well, adjustments to public employees retirement system.
Yes, some that are called for as it relates to first responders, not doing anything to the new hybrid plan or, the way any of that is delivered, but simply dialing back the 35 years to 30 years, which has come calls from my members are hearing that from all over the state, as well as adjusting it for first responders and specifically our law enforcement, keeping that retirement at 25 years as folks who are in those lines of duty. It is a different job, and there is a physical side to it that plays out. And so I thought those things were common sense and meaningful and don't do anything to harm where we want to go in righting the ship at PERS. That we also included and passed a bill yesterday that once again legalized mobile sports betting. And I would remind everybody, we already have sports betting in Mississippi. You just have to have your big toe inside the property line at one of our fine gaming establishments.
That's right.
We have people all over the state trying to place millions of bets annually illegally, some of which get through. Why wouldn't we go ahead and legalize that part of it as well? Let our gaming institutions here in the state, let our commission, number one, regulate it, and number two, let our establishments make that money and fill those bets. It's not like people aren't placing the bets. They're just doing it in an offline platform, illegally or otherwise, or in one of these national groups. And so that we're going to fool around and miss the boat on that. And again, while we are looking for a dedicated stream of revenue to address the PERS deficit, to me, it makes a whole lot of common sense. Let's legalize it and regulate it and capture those funds and dedicate them to our PERS deficit, which is exactly what our bill did yesterday, until such time as it reaches 82% funding. And in addition, Hank Zuber offered an amendment to that gaming bill on mobile sports and that dedicated revenue and added a $600 million CapEx one-time cash infusion into the system with a caveat that our PERS Board of Trustees actually adopt an assumed rate of return that is in line with our 10, 20, or 30-year averages. Now, there's a lot of legal jargon in that, but that's basically what it is saying is we simply want you to use an assumed rate of return that is legit and based on our earnings. And if we do that with a dedicated stream of revenue and this large cash infusion of $600 million, we are on the full road to righting the ship there and can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. But it takes all of those levers. One of the levers won't fix it. It takes a combination.
So
and as you said from way back, this is a math problem. This is money. We can fuss and talk about it all we want and who's got political courage to do what. But at the end of the day, we got to pay for it.
It's just a math problem.
Yeah. And that is what that bill yesterday puts forward. I hope our Senate counterparts will find a way to let's get that across the finish line and not only finally right the ship at PERS, but be realistic about where we are with mobile sports betting.
Well, as you know, the Senate's approach was we're going to inject $500 million from the same fund, and then we're just going to write a check for $50 million a year for 10 years out of the general fund. The House's approach is, well, let's create this new stream of revenue that's voluntary, by the way, and it's not draining our general fund. We're just going to divert the money, just like we did with the lottery, go straight to State Highway Fund and then the EEF without it flowing through the legislature.
Right. And politicians getting their hands all
Correct.
over it. And even their idea about $50 million a year for 10 years, those are subject to the political whims and wins every year. And I appreciate their willing to put resources there. I'm just saying, let's lock it in and create a win-win for Mississippians when it comes to that new stream of revenue. Without further diverting general fund dollars when as our tax cuts are phased in, we've got to be very careful about, our budgetary issues. And that's one more restraint or constraint that would be placed on that general fund when there is a perfectly good revenue stream here that is voluntary. And it's happening anyway.
Yeah, it's happening anyway. We're just not. So I'll also add this to it, Mr. Speaker, is that if we dedicated that stream of revenue, which is what the mobile sports betting bill would do, to PERS, I think the bond raters would look more favorably on that, which helps us when we have to borrow money.
They told us that, so we don't even have to. We don't even have to speculate about that. They want a large cash infusion.
Sure.
where that money makes money, and it's there. It's not subject to a political whim. It is in the bank, and it is making money.
Totally different.
And a dedicated stream of revenue in state statute is a much different animal than the whims of the legislature.
And they have the other states that they can look at to see, yeah, this does work good. We've seen this in the other states. Rhino and I looked the data up for our neighboring states. This just feels like another situation. If we don't get this done, that we're just a big white hole in the middle of all the other states.
That's right.
I mean, we're smart and they're dumb? I don't think that's the case.
Look, and as we've obviously examined other big issues this week and the Senate's actions, it tickles me a little bit that I will hear senators, and yes, even my House members, but senators especially, urge their members to vote for something, and they'll tell you all the states that are doing it, especially our surrounding states, and we got to get in the game. And I'm like, how does that? Where did we all go crazy on these other issues when we're looking at what our other states are doing? Like, anyway, I find great irony in that. Continuing for a second here with I think what are some achievements? Teacher pay raise. Historic teacher pay raise that would place us almost $2,000 above the southeastern average. That's a lot of money. It's a $5,000 across the board pay raise, together with an additional $3,000 supplement for our special ed teachers that are certified and in the classroom doing just that. All of that together carries a huge price tag, north of $250 million, and of course that's an annual. Yeah. It's recurring expense. So we've got to be careful and deliberate about that. We do have that room in our budget. It's obviously a different approach than the Senate took, but I'm not banging on those guys and girls. They can decide how they want to do and what they want to do. They had a $2,000 pay raise and that was met with some swift criticism, which I think is unfair, and it's disheartening when we're looking at budgets and trying to figure out what to do. So okay. They did what they saw was fit. Okay. Our folks had a little different approach there, and hey, let's get, because we are now, with our last pay raises, we did move off the bottom, right? And we're kind of competing at least 22, at least with our border states. Well, now obviously it's an arms race. They just immediately the next year after that, after 22, they all started raising theirs, and now we find ourselves at the bottom again. $5,000 we would surpass all of them, and the southeastern average, we would be $2,000 above starting salary for southeastern average. So it would place us in a much more favorable light, and hopefully attract more young people who are considering those careers, and they can see a path there, together with a 30-year retirement. And we have a shortage as well. We have an extreme shortage. It's acute and getting worse. Speaker of the House Jason White is in the Element Well studio. When we come back, we'll dive into HB2 and see where we are with respect to that. Stay with us, folks. We're in the Element Well studio.
Well, everybody knows that the world is full of stupid people. Well, I got the pistols, so I'll get the pesos. Yeah, that seems fair. That seems fair. And that seems fair. Well, that seems fair.
My name is Whitney Allen. And
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And my lack of education hasn't hurt me none.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Mississippi Speaker of the House, Jason White. So, Mr. Speaker, you made it clear between the 25 and the 26 session that pushing through some sort of school choice program, expanding what we currently have in the state of Mississippi was your top priority. You made that very clear. I don't think I'm misstating that.
No.
And so you got behind a measure, HB 2, that you prioritized, and it was a sweeping education bill, is what you could call it, which included provisions that would have rather dramatically expanded school choice options for Mississippi families. You passed that in the House by the slimmest of margins. You had some Republicans that joined with Democrats in opposing it. I'm really doing this for the benefit of our audience here. And then that gets transmitted to the Senate. And in very short order, Senator Dennis DeBar, chairman of the Education Committee, put it on the table there in his committee, and according to the audio that Rhino and I listened to, nobody voted. Yet he said the nays have it. It's unanimous or something to that effect. Disappointing that we didn't get more, at least robust debate. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I don't know. The House, as to that issue, we're evaluating all of our options, and again, this is about what's best for Mississippians. Like, some kind of way, somewhere, maybe, somebody's got to be the face of it, or maybe the tip of the spear, or whatever you want to call it. There's got to be this idea that this is the Jason White bill. I don't have any bills. I have what people come to us about, public policy issues that are out there in the public domain that voters and citizens raise the level of conversation to the point of it's a public policy issue that we need to address. It's no different than any other issues. Whether you're talking about eliminating the income tax or changing a funding formula or any of the big things. And here, let me say this too about the tight vote. On the big issues that actually people sit up and take notice and it affects their daily lives in a real way and moves the needle, those are always tight.
Sure.
Because when you start fooling with historic institutions and the way folks have always done it on whatever it is in state government, this isn't isolated education. People get either real nervous or real scared real quick. And the folks that are holding on to the status quo on whatever the issue is are real loud. And the oldest trick in the book around the cap is to run the clock out. If I can just make it to that deadline, or if I can just make it to the end of the session, or if I can make this 4-year term, we'll deal with that in the next term. And that's the old way of doing business. And I had said and told my members this: if y'all elect me speaker, we're going to tangle with big issues. We may not win, we may lose, we may get it right or wrong, we may not do anything at the end of the day, but we're not going to stick our head in the sand and pretend these things aren't happening around us and in our state. And I think school choice itself has risen to that level. Our parents, and I don't care what anybody says. Now, if you go ask a parent with their superintendent standing over their shoulder or their favorite teacher standing over their shoulder, they're going to be real timid about how they answer the question. But when you ask them straight up, every one of them are for more and better choices for their kids, even if their choice ends up being their local public school, which, by the way, that's the choice most people make when they have a choice.
Even in states that have choice.
Even in states that have full universal choice. Now, some were surprised at our vote in the House on the issue. We had 59 Republicans vote for that bill out of 78. That basically tracks what the polling shows for Republican primary voters, about 85%. It polls off the chart.
Yeah.
You can find very few issues that poll that high, especially dealing with Republican primary voters. But those numbers almost hold up across all parties and socioeconomic factors when it comes to school choice. This notion that it shuts down public schools or drains money from public schools, if that happened in Mississippi as a result of our, what I would call a measured small step in the direction of choice, if that happened, we would be the first state where that happened. Every other state where they have some form of school choice, the take rates are very low, but all families are more satisfied and all education systems are better. I think we have a good product to put on the field when it comes to our public education system in the state. And God knows we throw money at it like nothing else. It consumes almost 50 cents of every dollar.
Yeah.
We may have the policies wrong. We don't have the priorities wrong. We are putting plenty of money there. I think with all of that money and all those resources devoted, I think we can also sit up and take notice of parents and give them at least a little more say in their child's education. Now, I'm not upset at our Senate leadership about if they want to be against school choice now and forever. That is certainly their realm, and they don't need Jason White or any House member telling them what to do, or the president or the governor. That's their business. I get that. We sent them a great product in House Bill 2. If their problem is the way, I've heard folks on your show and in different interviews, one was worried about the fiscal components of it. One was worried about accountability. One was worried about, you name it. Address those issues. Come to the table. That's where you find win-wins for Mississippians, is when, hey, I'm not saying my House members are smarter than the senators. Come to the table and let's hear your views on it. We didn't hear a thing out of that that Senate Education Committee this week except silence. And again, here's another totally out of character move for them. They normally wait to the last minute to do anything, and maybe that's their best way. They acted prematurely a month in advance of a Senate deadline on a House bill to prematurely kill that bill and stifle debate on the issue. I'm extremely disappointed in that. Wherever they ended up on the issue of school choice, to not debate it and try to find a path forward. And if they loved all the other components of House Bill 2, as they have preaching everywhere, why wouldn't they just take out the parts they don't like and pass the bill, and let's move the process along? I think it was a disservice to the body as a whole, and I think it was a disservice to the citizens of Mississippi to not have that open dialogue and debate on the issue. We don't think we've got everything perfect and right, but we think it's an idea that is worthy of discussion and our best efforts to find a path forward for Mississippi. Again, as we say, we compete with all these states around us. It's one more area where we're not in the game at all.
The people of Mississippi have seen your reaction, the governor's reaction. You guys were obviously upset, and you called them out, aligned them with Democrats and some far-left organizations. Have you talked to Senate leadership since this occurred?
I have not. I saw several key senators late yesterday afternoon, and we had a cordial exchange, not about House Bill 2. And I love those guys and girls. They're my friends. It puzzles me how we see things so differently on that issue. But again, I don't beat them over the head about that. But let's have the debate and let's have the discussion. Lots of power in being a chairman in the House or Senate. Lots of power comes with that. But with that comes some duty and responsibility. And if you're good in where you are on a policy position, then let's make the world known, and let's have that discussion, and not whatever that was this week. I don't even know what you would call that, except a disappointment. And so I'm frustrated with that. After us spending 8 months and a lot of time and energy, again, that's their business if they don't want to go down that route, and they'll answer to voters just like my members will.
I feel like, in all honesty, Mr. Speaker, that they hear more from constituents and special interest in favor of opposing these policies than they do from people who support it.
The opposition is very organized. But let's look at who that opposition that you see out on the front lines. You don't see any conservative groups doing that.
Quite the opposite.
You don't see the faith-based groups doing that. And by the way, I don't know how much your listeners know and engage in this part of it, but our faith-based groups in Mississippi, whether you're talking about the Mississippi Baptist Association or the Catholic Association or our Pentecostal associations, they are actively involved in Mississippi politics. They show up at the Capitol. They have lobbyists and people that represent them there. They are all on board with this idea and have written letters of support. That, combined with our Mississippi Federation of Republican Women, who took big key votes on this issue. This wasn't something that passed into the cover of darkness.
Right.
They had great debate among their membership and found that it was best for Mississippi to move in this direction. All of our statewides, absent one, are elected statewide Republicans, all supported and put out public statements in favor of House Bill 2 and school choice. Our governor leading charge, our president, which our state voted overwhelmingly for, a Republican Party platform. The list goes on and on and on. It's fine to be against the factors the way we've got them. They should engage and let's fix the factors they don't like and find a product for Mississippi.
100 business people as well.
I should have mentioned that. But these are people that employ
Can you hang for one more? I know you got 1:30 today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Speaker of the House, Jason White.
Thank you.
From the
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert
All right, we are back.
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Element Wealth Studio. It's Middays with Speaker of the House, Jason White. So, at this point, Mr. Speaker, it appears the Senate just kind of wants it to go away. And, of course, the old saying is, it's not dead till it's dead, dead, dead. So is it possible that we could get you guys together to talk about what everybody could live with?
Well, we're gonna try that. And you know, I told somebody yesterday that was asking me about it. I'm like, and again, this isn't a shot at them. These are just the facts. Over the last couple of years on the big issues, they have killed them. Not as premature as they killed House Bill 2 this week, but they have run the clock out and killed big measures multiple times, hoping to not have to deal with them, whether we're talking about tax cuts or funding formula or different things. So this was a little different for them to do it prematurely. And again, that's their business.
Yeah.
But session still has 60 days. There are lots of avenues and options. I think it is such a huge issue that typically what happens is a measure doesn't make it on the other end. Or if we send them a bill, if they send us a bill and we don't do what they want us to do with it, they'll take one of our bills, amend it, stick their stuff in it, pass it, send it back.
Yeah.
And that horse trading and back and forth starts. This is such a big issue that I think, and the way that they killed House Bill 2, I think it lends itself. This is bigger than us just going and grabbing an education bill that's got code sections that came from the Senate and start stuffing all this stuff in it. I think that their actions maybe force a more pointed conversation about where we're actually going on this issue or where we're not going. And then, you know, the chips fall where they may after that. Both politically and otherwise. So we'll see what their this idea that every piece of House Bill 2, you know, made sense and had a measure of common sense to it and it was good policy and all that. The same people that wrote those bills wrote the part about school choice. So I don't know where they lost that part of their brain when they were in there. These are people who are compassionate and extremely motivated when it comes to improving our education systems throughout the state that work so hard on these issues in the House. And there has to be a path forward. And we're going to explore all of those in the House, and hopefully we can find some consensus with our Senate friends and cooler heads prevail. There's probably a little bit of leftover from last year's House Bill 1 and the way that played out. They probably on some level maybe personally have it in for me or some of my chairmen because of the way that played out. And that's unfortunate too. I have tried this is my 15th year. I have always tried to keep it about the policy and not let it be personal. And that may come from my lawyering days and being a judge and kind of plugging in and out of those kind of heated things.
Yeah.
I want us to keep it that way. And you know, for our part, we're gonna do that. It doesn't mean I agree with them on their stance on this policy, but it's not personal for me, and I'm gonna try to find a path forward, and that'll be my job in the next few days and weeks is find that path forward. Some folks down there are reasonable, and they do get it, and if they're so opposed to it, let that be known and give their piece, and then we'll move on. But it's not going away because of a silent committee meeting. where it wasn't even discussed from a body that couches themselves as the deliberative body. They call us wild men and women in the Senate, and that they're the deliberative body, and that's the way it was designed. Well, the only thing that was deliberate about Tuesday was there was a deliberate act to kill a piece of legislation prematurely with no discussion, no debate, no nothing.
In about a minute and a half.
84 seconds.
Okay.
Somebody measured it that way.
Yeah. Rhino's shaking his head. He did. So, so let's get this out there, because the objections, despite the number of times that you, me, other proponents of this policy respond to those, they can just have a life of their own. You hear it from opponents in the legislature. You hear it from opponents in the general public. We can't let so-called public money go to private schools is one.
Well, they've nuanced. That's the generic statement.
Yeah.
Now they nuance that into it drains money from public schools, or there's no accountability. Yeah. Those types of those arguments have branched off a little bit as we have beat that notion back with, well, we're in every other facet of private enterprise, and whether you're talking about healthcare or higher education, all these other things. We're actively involved and spend tons of public money on those areas and never see it again when it goes out the door. We contract all the time with private entities to deliver services for the state. That's accepted on almost every level. It's like, though, this is this holy grail. And again, maybe some of that criticism would be fair if we were starving public education. I think we are doing more and better than we've ever done when it comes to the way we fund public education with that new funding formula, which, by the way, has been fully funded in its entire existence and will be again this year. It includes legislation. The same old bad lawmakers that want some semblance of school choice also passed a $5,000 teacher pay raise.
That's true.
So them bad old Republicans, led by the bad old speaker.
And that's the other complaint, is that you're seeking to harm the public schools here.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I can say it 1,000 times. For those folks who want full and total and complete control of our K-12 education system, they're never going to get on board with any slice of school choice in any way, shape, or form. Here's some facts that are beyond denying. We are losing kids in our public school system every day, every year. Yep. The numbers dwindle even as our spending goes up. So parents are making other options. They're making other decisions. And so somebody says, well, that means they've got school choice. The problem with that is it's their tax dollars that are funding our public education system. And in the modern world we live in today, where everybody is interacting and folks drive 30 minutes to a job and don't think anything about it, sometimes an hour, in our state especially, there is room for school choice, at least on a measured approach to get started. And this idea that it's going to drain money from public, it has not done that anywhere else.
So another one is, well, we have school choice. You just move to the district where the school is that you want it. And I've heard members of the Senate in particular make
That's
those
such a
statements.
disingenuous solution to a problem when they know the majority of the folks that could avail themselves to this type of help and school choice, they have no means to pick up and move. Even if they had the wherewithal to do it, they don't have the finances to do that. It's why they are where they are in life. What you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to penalize that kid because of a parent's decisions, and we're not going to break the cycle. We're just going to let them keep running in it. And here's another thing. This idea about accountability. We do not have accountability in public schools. We have some semblance of transparency when it's allowed. We can see what a bad school looks like and see their grades and all that. But guess what? We don't give that family any options out of that school district, and we don't withhold that school district's money. They get every cent, whether they're an A or an F. That has no bearing on their money. Now, eventually, the state can come in and take one over when they're chronically for multiple years. But then when we get it up and back going halfway smooth, we turn it right back over, and it goes right back the same way. This is not – people view this legislation as some sort of shot at public school. Two things can be true at the same time. We can be for our public schools, funding them robustly and giving them the tools they need, while also recognizing that some parents want some different option for their kids, and the state should play a role in that. it gets that simple for me, and it aggravates folks when
I feel like
lay
if
it
the
out there that
accountability system for public schools were working, they'd all be A's.
I think so.
Right?
I think so.
We're holding them so accountable that nobody ever drops off to be a D or an F, which we know is not the case.
Not
and
the
then you're
case.
right. Then we just bring somebody else in there. The Department of Education takes over, maybe gets it back on its feet a little bit, but it's not a permanent solution.
But guess what? All the time, all that stuff's going on, we are steadily running those kids, sending them there, and saying, "This is your only option." It may not be as great as my kids' options because I'm going to to this private school, or I've moved over here to this great public school. But y'all get on up there now. It starts at 8, and do the best you can if you got some teachers there. Like all of that stuff plays into it. I just think we're in a place where folks deserve some semblance of choice, and I think as more and more parents demand it, and they see it working in other states, at least on some level, the issue's not going away.
No, and the other big one, of course, and I'm repeating what you already know, but for the benefit of our audience is, well, we don't have the space now for our current enrollment that's within our district. We couldn't possibly take more, but there's safeguards for that.
There's safeguards for that all throughout the legislation. And again, to our Senate friends, if we don't have it right, let's fix those things that have the rub in them and get it right instead of,
just say
no is not an answer.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, good to talk to you, sir. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for the opportunity, Gerard.
Yes, sir. Coming right back, final segment on Midday. Stay with us.
Hold on, I'm coming.
During Carter Jewelers.
Rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I feel a hot wind on my shoulder and the touch of the world that is older. I turn the switch and check the number. I leave it on.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We certainly appreciate Speaker of the House, Jason White, for coming in and spending 3 segments with us, Rhino. Always appreciative of his willingness to make his time available to us to talk about the issues affecting Mississippians, especially he in his role presiding over the House of Representatives. And glad that we were able to, I think, cover most of the critical issues and really dig into his thoughts on this marquee legislation that went down in flames in 84 seconds over there in the Senate. One of the problems, Rhino, is I think with public policy is the expectation that everything's perfect and every single person will benefit, and if they benefit equally. It's just unrealistic. And this is a tough one because it's sweeping. So many people are involved. And I think about, maybe we can't help every single student, but is that the reason not to enact it? Because if we can help some, you know what I'm saying here, shouldn't we at least do what we can and keep working on, as our framers said, that more perfect union? We could refer that and drill that down, distill it down to our state, that we're trying to create a more perfect state. That's what the framer said with respect to our country, create a more perfect union. And not trying to get philosophical here, but it's a situation where it's difficult, if not impossible, to just achieve perfection and purity I used to say in business, we strive for perfection. If we miss, we're merely excellent. On the C Spire text line, what's unrealistic is school choice. Let's just start with combining school districts. Well, why is it unrealistic? How many states now have robust school choice programs? Like 20? And more in discussion, headed in that direction? So it's not like we're blazing new trails here, inventing something that's never been tried. It almost feels like that we're conceding, well, the other states are just smarter than we are. I don't accept that and believe that for 1 second. I'm for some combining of school districts. We've talked about that. I think that's got to be done surgically and not sort of haphazardly. There needs to be some prudence involved in that. But dang, look at the attempt to do some community college combinations. Man, did that ever draw some criticism or what? So that quickly got shelved. I'm afraid the same thing would happen here. Everybody's got a sacred cow. That's what's so hard in government. Oh, yeah, them, not me, though. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not just referring to school district consolidation. But I get it. Dan in Hattiesburg says, really enjoyed the conversation with Speaker White. It's a shame that hard work was shot down in 84 seconds. I agree. This is another one. And I will say this, I like Speaker White a lot, but when he says the ones who disagree align with Democrats, I took offense to that. I was not on board with that bill because of the unknown and travel. I do like the school choice issue, but there needs to be more explained and covered. MAGA. Well, I disagree that needs to be more explained and covered. It could be that maybe you just haven't been privy to some of those explanations, but I'm not sure what more we could explain here, what more the speaker and proponents could explain. And I will just say again, we got numerous other states.
Well, in fairness, it's not our listeners, the proponents and the opponents of school choice, that need to hear what Speaker White just went through.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's the obstinate people sitting over in the Senate that believe unless it originates in the halls of the Senate or unless it comes from the mind of a senator, it is unworthy of becoming state law.
There is some absolute truth to that. There's some pride in ownership, if you will, that gets in the way often of good policy and good lawmaking. Also says, and just curious, it crossed my mind that they want these kids back to get government money because so many have gone to homeschool or fully private school. The state is losing money for every child lost to these entities. No, this doesn't produce more money, so that's not really a reason whatsoever.
Again, we do need to reiterate, if a child is no longer attending a public school, then that public school no longer is responsible for the cost associated with educating that child.
Correct. On the C Spire text line, so what happens to current private students' tuition? That's at the discretion of the private schools. Look, private schools have to compete in the market, and they would have to make sure that their tuition is in line with the market will bear. The number who would take advantage of this, I do not think would materially change that. It hasn't in the other states. Out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.